So welcome, Santiago. It was a pleasure finally to meet you. I saw you before and after. I was blown away. I had to meet you and just find out your story. Can you just tell me a little bit about, like, growing up? Did you ever have a weight problem?
Yeah, pretty much, Eric. A pleasure to meet you, by the way. I'm a follower of you for a long time, and I appreciate the work you do, so thank you for that.
Great.
Yeah, growing up all my life, including my family, we were kind of chubby. Only late now, I'm 45, we became healthy conscious, including my brother as well. And frankly, like any normal family, there's a lot of misinformation out there as to what's a healthy diet. Primarily, I was brought up in Argentina, middle-class family. We had all kinds of good treats and things. My family has definitely a sweet tooth. We used to have staples like everybody eats based out of flour, wheat, and sugar, or 3 or 4 meals a day and things like that. And all my life, it was a struggle to keep a weight. I would do the typical JoJo diet, stop eating, starve myself, and then go back right as to where I began extremely frustrated until I finally got it.
Well, I have a question about that because I always have, I'm in the States and I have this illusion that people in other countries, it's a lot healthier, there's no junk. That's not true, right?
Well, it's not, and I'm blessed enough to have traveled most of the world because of my business and my studies. And what has happened with globalization and the industrialization of processed foods, you find that just about everywhere you go. Even Aborigines in the middle of the Amazon, if they start eating, purely refined products, they become a balloon, like any normal human being. We were just not meant to eat that kind of food, and that's the end of the story. Whether we want to accept it or not, it's a different story. But the fact is that our organism is geared to only do one thing, and that's our survival. And what's in us, the hormones and the way our cells and the whole body works, is programmed for hundreds of thousands of years, and all this food has only been a product of the last 50 years.
Yeah, that's so true. So you're going along, and then how recently ago did you say, you know what, I need to figure this out, I need to find a way to lose weight? What was the turning point?
Well, it was right after my divorce about 3.5 years ago. I was miserable. The picture I shared with you was literally months before it. And I had totally reached bottom in terms of my self-esteem and pretty much just giving up. I was eating whatever. And as I was finding myself having to restart from scratch my life, I said, well, I really want to become the Santiago that I once envisioned. And part of that vision was actually having the body I always wanted. And frankly, nobody before me in my family that I know of had a six-pack. And I said, well, I'm going to figure this out. And it was not an easy road because what works for some people don't work for others. And myself, my metabolic syndrome was quite acute, as you can see from my belly. And I was the kind of person that still today, if I were to eat a pasta or rice, I would swell up literally within 2 hours. I'd be retaining water, and I would be back into the cravings and whatnot. And realizing that food addiction is a real thing. I mean, sugar lights up the brain more than heroin. I have never tried drugs in my life, but certainly I can tell you that I'm a sugar addict, because the minute I have it, the whole cycle starts once again, and then for 2 weeks I'm fighting it. So for everybody out there that's in my same shoes or was in your shoes, I mean, there's no way around it. You just gotta stay away from it. There's no cheating. There's no, I just have one morsel of it, because you can go against years of evolution, and your brain will definitely trick you into having more.
Mm-hmm. So what did you stumble on something that, hey, this makes sense, I'm going to use this? What was the thing that you started?
Well, it was a process. It was a journey of discovering what worked for me and what didn't work for me. But I can give you some of the basic guidelines that made the biggest difference. Once I realized that it wasn't the food, but it was the reaction on my body towards the food, primarily by the release of insulin, and understanding what would trigger that release of insulin was the key detrimental factor in me actually achieving my goals. I went through different sort of equilibriums until I reached where I'm at today. And, obviously you always want to push yourself and you want to go for more. So sometimes depending on, hey, am I having a glass of wine every Friday, or am I going out with my girlfriend and eating some treats here and there? Yes, of course, I'm human. And then my body fluctuates. So and then accordingly, I adapt to that. But the biggest has been being in a ketogenic diet, staying away from all refined products, not eating anything that is grain related or comes from kind of a grain process kind of meal. I stay away from dairy, although I must confess I love cheese, although cheese has a very high insulin response in my body. So that's always a challenge for me. And I'm generally staying away from dairy products and eating primarily greens, vegetables, and healthy proteins, mostly organic. Obviously, when you go and you eat out in a restaurant, you don't know what you're getting, but I tend to look for that. And then primarily doing intermittent fasting. Generally, it's my Mondays, my Tuesdays, and my Wednesdays. I do full fasting. I only have one coffee in the morning, one coffee around noontime with a tablespoon of coconut oil, organic coconut oil, and just plain water. And what I've noticed is that has the greatest benefit because it regulates all my hormones, increases my testosterone, increases my growth hormone, my performance in the gym. Actually, I stopped going to the gym now. I'm doing CrossFit, things that I could never envision, before. And I'm in the best shape of my life at 45. And I so thanks to changing my diet.
So on the days that you eat, how many meals do you have?
Oh, that's a very good question. I start my feeding window between 4 p.m. and 8 p.m. And like you always say, I don't do any grazing. So I generally start with a huge salad. I have like about 4 or 5 cups of mixed greens with a tomato, a full avocado, and then I prepare my own vinaigrette. I don't have any vegetable oils. I do balsamic vinegar and apple cider vinegar with a tablespoon of almond butter, and that actually creates a really flavorful vinaigrette. And I have that huge bowl with about, I would say, no more than 8 ounces of protein. Because for me, I'm also very sensitive to protein, so my insulin goes up if I have high amounts of protein, and I tend to vary. And that's sort of my staple, really. Then I also realized the negative effect of fructose, at least with me. For whatever reason, I'm extremely sensitive to all kinds of sugars. So now I try to keep my fruit intake only to a Sunday, more or less. So, for example, on a Sunday, I will have a bowl of about, 1 or 2 cups of mixed berries just to get the benefits of the antioxidant effects and all the good stuff that berries have. But with that, I've been managing to keep all the weight off. My weight fluctuates depending if I'm bulking up at the gym or not. And I try to keep it between, 1,800 to 2,200 calories. And I'm anywhere between 10 to 12% body fat. And it's managed quite well. My triglycerides, everything actually, if you look at my blood profile today, is 10 times better than what it was 3 years and a half ago. And I'm feeling great.
Now, how would you, what would you say to someone who has this idea that if you don't eat, you're going to lose your muscle mass?
Well, actually, there's tons of proven medical studies that show that the body actually increases your growth hormone and increases your testosterone to protect muscle mass. Yes, in the first few hours of fasting until the body switches and depletes your glycogen levels, you tend to lose volume, but that's because you're burning and releasing water. So because you're burning your glycogen in your muscles, you kind of shrink on the first day. But the reality is that the reason why we're so predominant in Earth and we haven't gone extinct is that Mother Nature provided us with the right systems in our bodies to preserve ourselves through starvation. And actually, the interesting and most mind-blowing fact is that diets don't work, but understanding why diets don't work. I'm an engineer by trade, so I always try to go to the basics of how systems work. And the biggest aha moment was when I realized that if I were to lower my calorie intake from my basic metabolic rate, let's say it's 2,200 today, and I would say, I'm just going to eat 20% less calories. Well, over a period of a week, my body would adjust. And all of a sudden, my basic metabolic rate would go down. So I kept going to like this sort of corner to where at the end I was eating very little, feeling weak, feeling cold, and my performance in the gym or whatever I was doing was non-existence, and I felt really bad. But when I started fasting, I obviously didn't jump into this kind of fasting routine day one. This has been an adaptation over 2.5 years of my life. And the first thing I got rid of was breakfast. And actually, well, people are saying you're having breakfast at 4 p.m., right? People don't get it. But the reality is what normal American diet calls breakfast, when you wake up. And I started pushing those windows until it became 4 p.m. And then eventually I realized I was not hungry because I was in full ketosis. And I could go on 1, 2, 3 days without eating. And my energy level would go up. My awareness would go up. My whole system would be on a higher alert mode. And I would feel great. In fact, my last meal was this past Sunday at 6:30 p.m. And here I am talking to you, whatever today is, Wednesday at 2:30. And the only things I had has been 6 cups of coffee and 6 tablespoons of coconut oil. And I feel great. And in fact, if I touch myself, I feel like I have a fever because my metabolism is through the roof. Amazing. And it's great.
Yeah, I think you do coffee, right? In Miami, they have some really good coffee, Cuban coffee, right? But they, I guess for people, they have this idea that, well, how am I going to go from one meal to the next? And it really has to do with your body is using your own fat as the fuel between the meals. And so you're not starving, you're keeping your calories at enough so your body is never sensing a starvation, but you're manipulating the frequency of eating to optimize, growth hormone and testosterone. So
correct. The whole trick here is actually when you fast and you eat less than 500 calories a day. I mean, I forgot the name of the study, but there's a study out there, and I'll email it to you later. They actually measure both the oxidation of fat, protein, and carbohydrates in the body, and they tracked that over a period of 5 days. And what they realized was that oxidation of fat goes to the roof 24 hours into the fast. Oxidation of the protein, meaning your muscles, is almost null and non-existent, and they measure that by how much urea you secreted. And then basically you have normal glycogen, so oxidation of carbs also is minimum. And what they realized was that we actually built to go through processes of eating, feasting, going about our life, and then fasting. But in modern society, and obviously because of the food industry and partially because of the medical industry, quite frankly, we have grown accustomed to be eating and grazing constantly. And many of today's diseases, including diabetes, are primarily based because we just simply don't give ourselves the time to process the energy we ingest. And we don't give our bodies the chance to do their natural thing. And we constantly feeding ourselves more than what we need.
Well, that's a very good articulate way of explaining it, because it's like this is the original diet that we should be on, and people think, when are you going to start eating normally? I'm like, I am eating normally. So it's just a big confusion. It's an educational problem that I think it's on my side now, that we're actually dealing with and trying to, oh yeah, there we go. Yeah, we're trying to get the word out because there's so many people that are just wasting their time doing the wrong thing. And when it's so simple, once you get the facts and you do it, there's a little bit of a transition phase. But the other question I was going to ask you is, how many times a week do you do CrossFit?
Only 3. Really, I don't want to over-exercise. And one of the things that I notice as you age, obviously you don't recover as quickly. But I do push myself significantly, meaning that those days that I go, I wear a heart rate monitor, and my heart, on average, and Chandel, my coach, can attest to that, ranges between 160 and 170. And I push myself because that also pushes my system, pushes my hormones, and keeps me young. And in fact, I lowered my metabolic age to an age of 25, being 45. Versus where before I was a metabolic age of 52 at age 41. And it was very interesting. I think the most important people need to understand is that exercise helps regulate the hormones and helps your body, but it doesn't dictate the shape you have. I mean, once people understand that a six-pack is made in the kitchen, or actually the absence of being eating more than anything else, is that you're going to lower your body fat below 10%. And you're simply going to melt away. You wouldn't believe. And the biggest transformation for me was when I started this. I went through all kinds of programs and clinics and things. Nothing seemed to work until I went, unbeknown to me, on a 40-day fast. They were feeding me less than 500 calories a day. What now I know is considered a ketogenic diet. At the time, I didn't know. And frankly, the first week, I went through the keto flu and I was feeling weak and whatnot. But by, say, day 6, all of a sudden, this great feeling of awesomeness started kicking in. And then by, I don't know, day 20, it was like every morning I would like literally want to wake up early to go and weigh myself. I have this, Ironman scale that shows me body fat and whatnot. And I couldn't believe the changes. And I couldn't believe how awesome it felt and how effortlessly was to drop pound after pound after pound after pound of pure fat. And by day 40, I had my first six-pack.
I think that's so key, that once you actually experience this correctly and you feel what it feels like, you're not going to go back, because you know. It's like, I feel like I'm kind of just up all the time. I'm just feeling up, just my mood, everything is like energy. Like I would never go back, because it was just like, but at the time I didn't realize I was stuck in this blood sugar issue. So, but now that I know, I'm like, man, if you could only feel what it feels like, and the weight loss just comes right off.
Yeah. And frankly, once you understand the dynamics of how the body responds, then you start making the right decisions, right? Like, for example, on one of your videos, you mentioned about the bulletproof coffee. I read the book. I was in great shape. I said, hey, why not? This is fat. It should make sense. So I went and I got the organic grass-fed butter. And I actually started gaining weight, because what had happened, that triggered my insulin. And I just didn't know better that butter, although being a fat is supposed to be healthy for you, it triggered my insulin response. So here I was following protocol, eating that fat, yet I was gaining weight. The minute I left the bulletproof coffee and I just went back to my own, regular coconut oil, whatever, tablespoon, my body immediately responded positively. So I guess the takeaway is that follow protocols, always be curious enough to understand the why behind it, and adjust based on how your body responds. Not everybody responds the same to everything.
Yeah, and then you're basically, you can predict things, you can understand, you can see how your body responds, you can build up a health reserve. So if you want to go off on a Sunday, you know what's going to happen. I can get right back on, but it really puts the person in control versus being in a trap of stuck in this body that I can't lose weight, I'm stuck, and it was just terrible. But I wanted to mention, I noticed on your website, I checked you out, and you have a very cool thing that I wanted just to ask you about. It's actually a grill that you have, and I want to put a link down below, because I think one of the challenges that I'll have when I cook, especially like meats, it never tastes like it should. Like I go to a restaurant and they cook this steak that's just perfect, or this piece of meat or a hamburger. Like I'm always struggling with that. But there's an interesting little, I guess, kind of a grill that you have that is very, very even. You cook it very even, right? You can drain the grease out. Tell us about that.
It's an invention of mine. I've been toying with it, believe it or not, for 5 years to get it what it is, and it's patented, and we're going to bring it out to the market pretty soon. But being myself originally from Argentina, we're born grilling, and our grill system is pretty different than the American system. And when I started grilling here in the United States, I love to entertain friends and families when I can. I was always very frustrated with 3 things. One, my food would always get charred, because when the fat melted, it would hit the combustion system or whatever it was, and it would just simply create a big ball of fire. 2, the nastiness of the flavor of the briquettes instilled in my protein, okay? And 3, having to clean that mess. So I said there had to be a better way. And I went in this quest to creating what was unbeknown to me today, what's called Nuvo Grill, that had a whole bunch of other healthier benefits that end up transcending from the very simple design. And what it is simple, an angled wedge grate that, because of its very heavy, actually 17 pounds. It's made out of cast iron. It collects both radiant heat and convection heat and allows the protein to cook much quicker, more evenly, and creates a barrier between the fumes that the fuel produces, where you use gas, charcoal, whatever, and the protein. So not only does it cook evenly across the whole surface, it also is healthier for you because the fat never gets charred, and that has a lot of cancerogenous substances on it. And you get to enjoy a healthier, leaner cut of protein. And obviously works with fish and vegetables.
I think that's cool. I saw it. I said, this is a really cool invention. I have a grill. And the problem is, like, you put this meat on the grill. Especially, I like fatty meat, and I love hamburger, and I make my own hamburgers. And the fat goes down, and it mixes with the charcoal. It comes back up. I mean, that right there, that's causes cancer. So anything that could reduce your cancer rate and make it just a good tasting piece of meat, I'm totally into it. But I think you did a good job.
Well, you should try it out. I'm actually going to send you one, and then looking forward to your comments.
Okay, cool. Listen, I want to thank you, Santiago, for this great interview. Your before and after is amazing and awesome. So thank you so much, and I'll talk to you real soon. We'll do a follow-up.
Sounds good, and thank you for the work you do. I really appreciate your videos.
Oh, my pleasure. Okay, have a good one.